Hey dudes, it's Lerald. So GGG nerfed tier 16.5 maps yesterday, and people have been scrambling for farm strategies to fill the massive void that they've left behind. Tier 17 maps are definitely back on the menu, and this means that a lot of the tier 16 strategies that generate tons of tier 17 maps are valuable once again. Nature is healing. Everything's fine, really. I've been playing around with several different strategies, and this is the one I think is best from my preliminary rounds of testing. It's the one that I wanted to get out to people first, have other people play with this, see how they like it. There are no risk Scarabs involved, so there's no chance of bricking your maps. There's a lot of quality of life on display here, I think. First off, it's cheap. The Scarabs are all just extremely common, so you're gonna spend like less than 10 chaos per map on Scarabs, which is good. It works in tier 16s, tier 17s, tier 16.5s, it works in everything, works in less than tier 16s for that matter, and I think it's more fun than most of the rest of the strategies that I've tried. So let's get into it, but first be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and while you're at it, join our Discord, Skipping Sleep Studio, which covers both of the YouTube channels we run. There is a link in the description. Alright, let's talk about the nerf. It's just one line, right? They fixed a bug where the 8 modifier corruption outcome on an originator influence maps resulted in all of the map mods being tier 17 map mods rather than a mixture of tier 16 and tier 17. Obviously this is a bug, and on the one hand, it's like, technically speaking, they didn't actually nerf tier 16.5 maps. They really nerfed the corruption scarab, but on the other hand, it is a huge nerf. So like, it's technically not a nerf, but also it's an enormous nerf. And just to jump in game and kind of show off some of the differences in the maps, this is a map that I farmed before the nerf happened, and the way that you can tell it's a tier 17 map mod rather than a tier 16 is at the end of the name of the mod, it will then also say the tier 1, and that means it's a tier 17 map mod. You know, this map, as you can see, 210 quant, 262 rarity, 50% more maps, 196% more currency. Here I have another one that's all T17 mods, and again it's like 160 quant, 96 rarity, 150 more maps, 210 more currency, you know, completely insane. And then this one is a much more sane map that I farmed after the fact. You can see it has, just looking at this, it has 3 tier 17 map mods, and I guess that would make it 5. Yeah, 5 different tier 16 map mods. So you can see it's 145 quant, 123 rarity, 50% more maps, 70% more currency. You know, not nearly as impressive of a map. Also, not necessarily not as hard, although with these specific modifiers of doing no damage 3 out of every 10 seconds and targeted by a meteor when you use a flask, this is actually a map that would kind of suck. So obviously this represents a pretty significant reduction in the amount of power and like currency and so on available to players. You're no longer able to just like get 40, 50, 60 maps per map that you run. But here's the thing. I already farmed up this many maps just of like Mesa. You can see I've been feeding a lot of them to my mappers. You can kind of see the ones that I've chiseled out where they were ones I couldn't run. I've been giving them to them, and I've farmed tons more maps. So I still want to do something with all the tier 16 maps, 8 mod tier 16s, and I think this strategy is the right approach. And also with the tier 17s for that matter. I got a lot of those hanging out as well. You know, these are just the ones left over that I haven't sold already, right? And so what I've been doing is I've been running Calgur. I've been doing King's March again. Now this might turn some people off if they hated King's March, if they hated Settlers League. Even if you liked Settlers League, I think, you know, the fact that it's stuck around for a year is enough to turn people off, and I don't blame you. But you don't have to touch King's March at all while doing this strategy. You probably should just to send crop shipments out every few days, send a 17 million crop shipment out to Calgur and hope it comes back with mirror shards, and this will help with that. But the ore and bars and all of that don't really matter. Instead, the reason that we're using Calgur and Scarabs is because of this Scarab, the Calgur and Scarab of Guarded Riches, which makes all the monsters at the ore deposits in the area be magic, and then you're able to shove a lot of ore deposits in every single map for very cheap. And this is the reason why I'm farming Calgur content, right? In maps, it's really valuable, even if you literally never go to King's March at all, because I wrote down 5 reasons. First off, the encounters are fast. Second, they spawn a ton of monsters. The monsters are all magic and rare. The Scarabs are all dirt cheap. Like, this Guarded Riches Scarab is like 0.25 chaos each. These Calgur Scarabs are less than 3 chaos each in large bulk through the trade the trade tool, and there are insane amounts of them on the trade tool because they're incredibly common. Oh, maybe I bought it all the way up to 3 chaos each. That's fine though. Like you could see, there are like tens of thousands of these available for less than 4 or 5 chaos each. Like, not a big deal. And then finally, you can get a lot of ore spawns per map. You could get like not just 1 or 2 or 3, I've seen like 5 or 6 ore spawns per map, which is very different from the likes of Blight or anything like that, where you get 1 and that's it. So Calgar kind of functions a bit like Abyss or Beyond or Blight, where it spawns tons of valuable monsters to kill quickly, but unlike Abyss or Beyond or Blight, it's not like moving all around the place or randomly irritating you throughout the whole map, or taking several minutes at a time like a very long Blight can. The strategy also generates tons of gold. I did a quick sample of tier 17 and tier 16 maps and testing this. This is kind of a strategy I've been playing with on and off for a while, but I did an extra sample here after the nerf just to see. And I did some tier 17 maps. I was pulling hundreds of thousands of gold from every single one of those, and anywhere from like 30 to 70,000 gold from each of the tier 16 mesas that I was running. Those were all 8 mod maps, but they weren't tier 16.5s, so I think that's a pretty representative sample. Basically, every time you run into a Crimson Iron ore node, you get about 10,000 gold out of it, if not more, and that's a pretty good amount of gold. It's also a pretty good indicator of how much other stuff the monsters are dropping, since gold is basically just cold items of other types that weren't like dropped as currency. They were or armor or div cards or whatever. They were instead converted into gold. So let's move into the Scarabs. So what I'm actually doing for the Scarabs is, obviously I'm using the Guarded Riches Scarab. You only need 1 of those. And then I'm using 2 of the Calguran Scarabs to add an ore deposit for each of those, as well as the ore deposit from the map device. So we're getting between those and the guaranteed ore deposit from all of our passive points in the tree, we're getting like a minimum of 4 ore deposits, potentially more in every single map. And then I just filled in my other 2 slots with monstrous lineage scarabs. Now, I don't believe that this pack size applies to the magic monsters that are coming out of the ore deposit encounters. Maybe it is, but I don't think so. I think that you're just getting 80% increased magic pack size, but that's a good thing. That's like a lot of extra magic monsters to kill. Magic monsters drop a lot of currency in Scarabs. They also drop a ton of gold. So scaling up magic pack size is just a really effective way to get a lot more drops throughout your maps. And it works really well in larger maps like tier 17s as well. And these are, again, incredibly cheap. They're very common. They're like maybe 1 chaos each, maybe less, depending on the time of day. So just a really cost-effective way to put a lot of monsters into your maps. All right, now I'm going to move over to the Atlas passive tree that I've been running here. So since we are doing Calgur and I want to put that into the maps, I am taking the points in the tree to get them in there. I also really like the decision that GGG has gone with to make the nodes that you take to like put a type of content into your maps also increase the drop rate of those Scarabs. Like that was really cool with Ambush, for example, and I just really like it with the Calguran mechanic as well, just getting a lot more of those Scarabs, since they're not super expensive, but they're not free, they're not worthless either, so it's like good to have a steady diet of those. I'm really happy to come over here and take this Keystone Refiner's Bargain. It gives you a chance for each of the items that drop from possessed monsters to just directly be converted into Thaumaturgic Dust with no time spent at ROG and the Disenchanting Hut or whatever. Like, I do like sending out the shipments a few times a week, and the main limiting factor on that is dust. So having that Refiner's Bargain in conjunction with Seance, just forcing 5 rare monsters in each map to be possessed, is like really, really effective. This is actually more effective, I would say, unless you're specifically targeting like super high value, like tier 1 uniques that are low chaos value but high Thaumaturgic Dust value. Unless you're like specifically focusing on those, I think that Refiner's Bargain will just do a much better job of generating tons of Thaumaturgic Dust for you. And then the other 2 aspects of it, getting like random ore instead of sulfite, getting life force converted into crops, I don't care about that at all. Then the rest of the notables for Kalgur, there's kind of some very specific value here. So Fortune's Favor is kind of weird. It basically just means that you're more likely to get Verisium ore. And we don't really care that much about the ore. I'll touch a little bit more on shipping in a second if you do want to ship out any ore, but really it's not that huge of a deal. Yield upon yield just simply gives you more chances at ore deposits, and we really like the ore deposits. Again, like, not for the ore, we just like how many monsters they spawn, so this is really good. I like Lost in Transit. This gives you a chance for your ore deposits to be replaced by a lost shipment. I've gotten divines out of these, I've gotten valuable tattoos and rune grafts out of them. You know, I've gotten like some valuable uniques or valuable like well-rolled rare items that I've either used or sold at various points along the way, so I like these a lot. They're very fun to walk up on a lost shipment, just have, you know, like a bunch of currency there waiting to be looted. And then up here, I am taking a lot of these nodes. I'm taking Crimson Infusion. This is why this strategy is so good. Getting Crimson Iron, which is the most common anyway, to have 2 additional corrupted growths is the reason that you're able to get so many monsters out of your ore events, the Kalgurin ore events. And really, I think we could maybe even not take the Verisium Infusion. The main reason that I have is just simply that I'm trying to fish for the boss, and he does spawn in place of Verisium at times. He'll be a Verisium crater instead of or Starfall crater instead of a Verisium ore deposit. So I do want that, and I considered taking Fortune's Favor as well in place of, like, I think I would just drop 2 Scarab nodes to do it just to get more shots at the boss. But I feel like Fortune's Favor also kind of reduces your chance of Crimson Iron a little bit more because it's rarer options. So I think you would have more chances at Bismuth, more chances at Amber is on the less common side. Like, I believe the rarity is Crimson Iron first, most common, then Orichalcum second most common, then Petrified Amber's right in the middle. Bismuth is like whatever, next to least common, and then Verisium is by far the least common. So I feel like Fortune's Favor just kind of like changes the weights a little bit, whereas these just, you know, are single targeting the thing that you're trying to find. So obviously I want that boss, I want more Verisium, and then the reason I like taking the Bismuth node here is really twofold. One, Bismuth, you just walk up and click it and you move on it. It literally wastes no time at all, which is like good for speed, but actually bad for generating ore, right? Like, you're not fighting monsters. However, it adds modifiers to monsters throughout the map, and the node for taking it gives a 30% chance to get an extra modifier. So those modifiers result in a lot more drops out of monsters, and especially if it combines with like Seance, a possessed monster that's now getting like 2 extra mods thanks to the Bismuth modifier on it, then combining with Refiner's Bargain, it just adds up to a lot of extra thaumaturgic dust, a lot of extra gold. You will notice some massive loot explosions after you click a Bismuth ore node, especially early on in a map. It's really like quite rewarding, so I do think it is justifiable actually to take, like, you know, this weird collection of like all 3 of these. I think are all pretty justifiable for various different reasons. And then I think the other 2 all seem pretty bad, like Orichalcum just getting the buff to last longer. I mean, it's fine, right? It's basically just like a free damage buff, but I don't really feel like I need it. And then Petrified Amber, like, this was the slowest and most annoying one, and this just makes it like easier to not fail something that's already pretty easy, so I don't really think that's much of anything. Alright, so because tier 17 maps are back on the menu, I think Chiseled Perfection is also back on the menu. Again, this is a node that you're either going to want to take if you are running a map that you're chiseling up to 20% quality, or you're going to want to drop it if you're running Corrupted 8 mod maps. Again, you know, kind of up to you. I also think that this strategy can be very good for Corrupted 8 mod map farming, and the way that I would do that is I would just simply drop like a bunch of the random Scarab nodes, like the ones that I just clicked, you know, like the 2 over here, and the like 3 here, and the 2 here, and the 2 here. And then I would just take Shaping the Skies and Shaping the Mountains, and there you go. Perfect sets of points there, and if you wanted to swap Scarabs around to make this strategy work for Corrupted 8 mod map farming, or tier 16 map, or tier 17 map mod farming, like, that is the approach I would take. Just run tier 16.5 maps that have a more maps modifier on them and try and farm tier 16s. I would just simply swap in, or cartography Scarab of Escalation and a cartography Scarab of Corruption. Just swap those in. You get so many monsters out of these ore events that you are able to get tons of maps out of them, and this would work really, really well. Especially with a Atlas passive tree that is set up in this way, where you are going back and shaping the mountains and shaping the skies once again. You could spend the points to get over to shaping the world, but this is quite a lot lower value node than these two sets, so I don't really think it's as worth it. Otherwise, I just have the tree set up like so. I'm taking all the Scarab nodes I possibly can. I'm really trying to lean in on getting as many currency items and Scarabs as I can, primarily because I have already farmed up, you know, such an enormous mountain of 8 mod maps, tier 16.5 maps, and tier 17 maps. I'm kind of trying to get out of the map farming business and get into the map farming business, you know? Other than that, most of the rest of it is still the same. I'm taking all the map mod effect I can, taking all the Scarab stuff I can, taking the Eater of Worlds, some Eater of Worlds pack size, taking all the quantity, quant and rarity in the middle. And then finally, I do still want the tier 16.5. You know, I want as many of them as I can get, so I'm still taking the 2 small passives that give you more tier 16.5 map drops. All right, and now here I have a very basic early Settlers League cheat sheet that somebody posted in the old Reddit a while back. When is this from? A year ago. Of course it is. It was early Settlers League. I'll post this in the description of the video. This is by no means comprehensive or like completely accurate. There are a lot of people who've put a lot of effort and research into like figuring out how Settlers shipping works now. I think Sorgog has been doing some good work on that. It's definitely not re-solved. I've just basically been going back to a lot of the same strategies that people used late in last league, including myself. Just sending like 17 million shipments worth of crops and dust over to Kalgur every few days. My last one didn't come back with a mirror shard, so that felt pretty bad. But you know, hopefully the next one will. In terms of the ore, if you do want to actually make some use of it, I don't really think Crimson Iron ore is worth much, but you could send it to like Ribbonfell or whatever, or, you know, you can send it to Nakanu, get some strength armor, like whatever. It basically just brings back armor, which really isn't worth all that much. Verisium ore, on the other hand, in my experience, I think shipping it to Ribbonfell and fishing for Scarabs is pretty good. Shipping it to Teanoi and fishing for uniques, you know, you're probably not going to get anything valuable, but if you get some uniques that you could at least give to Rog to Dust for a decent amount, to then build up those 17 million shipments to ship off to Kalgur, you know, that could wind up being like worth shipping the Verisium over to Teanoi. As for Orichalcum and Petrified Amber, I don't really think they're worth much. I mean, again, you could send Petrified Amber to like Nakanu and try and get yourself a belt. I don't know. Bismuth, kind of whatever. I guess you would want to send. There really aren't any great alt options for Bismuth, so, you know, I don't know. Do whatever you want with it. Don't farm it. Honestly, like, that is a thing you can do if you are wanting to send out crops and you're not wanting to waste the gold on King's March. A thing you can do is just unsocket all of your miners and smelters and just not have them be working, and just pile up a bunch of mined up ore that you just never bother with. I don't know why I'm not doing that. I probably should be, but I just didn't feel like it, so yeah, I'm just still generating bars that I'm not really making any use of, other than shipping Verisium off to Ribbonfell and hoping I get decent Scarabs back, which I haven't really gotten many decent Scarabs back yet, but hey, maybe next shipment, surely. In terms of mapping proper, again, it's kind of the same setup as it always has been. I really like Mesa and Dunes. I think those are both just really good maps. You know, I like to boss rush in Mesa. I like to remove all the boss rewards from the Eldritch Altar pool, and then pretty much emphasize the same stuff as before. If you're trying to do Corrupted 8 mod map farming, then you would want map duplication as like the highest priority player mod. Otherwise, you just want like quantity, currency, and Scarab duplication as valuable player mods. Div card duplication, since Mesa has a good div card on it. If you're running a map that has a good div card on it, then div card duplication is obviously going to be good. You know, what's better than one apothecary? 2 apothecaries. Monster mods that give like currency or div cards or whatever can be good as well. I did get a Divine Shrine finally. I got one yesterday in Jungle Valley map. Unfortunately, it was in the last pack of the map, and I wound up with 0. divine orbs out of that, so, that'll happen. And then, I still like Mesa and Dunes primarily because they do have the best tier 17 map, Fortress, and Fortress value is rising up again, so I think that just blasting this as a strategy either in Mesa or in Fortress and kind of ping-pong it back and forth between the two really is the approach I am going to take, and I would recommend other people take it as well because it's been pretty profitable for me already just in a short span of time doing it, and pretty fun as well, pretty quick and mostly painless, which is, about as good as you can hope for in the current state of the game. One thing I want to really emphasize before wrapping up. I think the main thing you need to pay attention to is tier 17 mods if you're running tier 17s or tier 16.5s, because these Calgar events spawn a lot of monsters. I know I've said this, but it is true. I really can't stress enough how many monsters come out of the Crimson Iron ore nodes, especially towards the end of those events. And if you're running a map with the tier 17 mod that makes rare monsters remove 5% of your life with each hit, and then map mod effect is multiplying that up to like 9 or 10%, you can die instantly if you're not paying attention. Tier 17 mods are critically important to pay attention in this. Again, some of the other mods, like conjunctions of mods like penetrating resistances or minus max resistances in conjunction with like 200% of fizz as a random element, can be very, very dangerous in these events. So I'm pretty happy with this strategy. In the span of an hour or two of playing with this before recording, I averaged at least one Raw Divine every other tier 17 map, as well as a bunch of valuable Scarabs, so I think that's pretty good. You could definitely slap some Delirium Orbs onto those tier 17s if you really want to juice it a little bit further, and that would significantly increase the amount of currency that you're getting out of those maps, just by nature of adding the Delirium quantity multiplier. I also pulled in several Raw Divines from tier 16 farm of doing this, and again, like several very valuable Scarabs, and those maps were very quick, 3 to 5 minutes at most. So I think this is a pretty good all-purpose farm strategy that's like nice and simple and quick and cheap, and I always like to emphasize being quick and cheap. Alright, that's it. Be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and join the Skipping Sleep Studio Discord and say hello to me and Sunset if you haven't already. And finally, thank you to all of our channel members. If you want to support us so we can keep making more PoE content, become a channel member as well. Thanks for watching. Bye.